On August 4, 2020, in the port of Beirut, Lebanon, a cargo ship carrying 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate detonated. This event was triggered by a fire, wherein there was a slow initial explosion. Ammonium nitrate was burning at this stage, and crackling sounds can be heard all over the place. This chemical is primarily used in agriculture to make fertilizers, but is also an ingredient in bombs. But what caused this huge disaster? The ship MV Rosas is originally bound to Mozambique, but stopped over in Beirut to pick up extra cargo to pay for its passage to the Suez Canal. However, the ship was declared unseaworthy. This led to the ammonium nitrate being stored in the warehouse without proper safety for 6 years. The second explosion caused enormous damage, so powerful it physically shook the whole country. Even the blast was heard in Cyprus, making this one of the most powerful non-nuclear explosions.
There are many things that were affected by the Beirut explosion. First and foremost, the human lives. As recorded, the explosion resulted in a loss of over 200 individuals and injured about 8,000. The explosion was so huge that caused immense human suffering, family losing loved ones, and many experiencing trauma and displacement. Moreover, public health was also affected. With an enormous number of injured individuals, medical attention overwhelmed hospitals because at that time first responders were already struggling due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Next, Lebanon is already in a state of struggling economy. The country suffered a severe blow due to the destruction of vital infrastructures, including the port of Beirut, which is a key entry point for goods into the country. This resulted in further unemployment, poverty, and financial stability. Moreover, the blast caused heavy damage to the buildings, homes, businesses, and infrastructures in the vicinity of the port, including hospitals and schools. The destruction left many areas uninhabitable and disrupted most of the essential services. Lastly, politically, the explosion triggered public anger and frustrations towards the Lebanese government, with many blaming government negligence and corruption for the disasters. It triggered widespread protests and demands for accountability and political reforms, which resulted in several government officials resigning in the aftermath of the explosion.
The massive explosion in the port of Beirut ripped through Lebanon's capital, killing 218 people, injuring 7,000, and leaving 300,000 displaced. The blast caused widespread destruction, leaving a crater at the port area and damaging buildings and infrastructure within a several kilometer radius. It is considered as one of the biggest non-nuclear explosions to have been recorded, damaged 77,000 apartments, and cost an estimated $3.8 to $4.6 billion in material damage. In the short term, the Beirut explosion had significant effects on the environment, landscape, and health. It released a large amount of pollutants in the atmosphere, raising concerns about air quality and health risks for the residents nearby. Numerous injuries occurred, overwhelming medical facilities and leading to delays in treatment. Additionally, worries persisted about the long-term health effects of exposure to hazardous substances released during the explosion. In the long term, the Beirut explosion resulted in environmental contamination of soil, water bodies, and air due to hazardous chemicals released. This contamination poses lasting environmental risks and threats to the public health. Reconstruction of affected areas and critical infrastructure faces significant challenges due to the explosion's economic impact on Lebanon. Furthermore, widespread psychological trauma among survivors and communities has led to the symptoms of PTSD and other mental health issues, potentially affecting the well-being in the long run.
One of the critical factors that emerged from investigations was the improper handling and storage of ammonium nitrate at the port of Beirut. Despite warnings and knowledge of its hazards, the highly explosive material was not properly secured by the Lebanese authorities. According to evidence, several authorities were negligent in handling the cargo from Rosos. The biggest example of this is former President Michel Aoun and former Prime Minister Hassan Diab, who were both aware of the possible dangers that the port's ammonium nitrate could pose but did not take the necessary precautions to lessen the risks. The problem was also made worse by the port management's culture of corruption and poor management, which allowed the hazardous goods to be carelessly stored for almost 6 years. Along with this, a series of shortcomings were brought to light through official correspondence and government official interviews. This included incomplete descriptions of the cargo's risks, poor communication between ministries, and a lack of oversight over repair operations which may have triggered the explosion. Preventative measures could have been taken to lessen the risk connected with keeping hazardous materials at the port. It would have been possible to prevent the buildup of explosive materials such as ammonium nitrate, fuel, and fireworks, and guarantee that the proper handling procedures were followed through regular inspections, stricter regulations, and infrastructure improvements. Unfortunately, the execution of these policies was hindered by a lack of political will as well as systemic issues within Lebanon's governance.
The 2020 Beirut explosion stands one of the worst disasters in modern history. It destroyed Lebanon to its foundation and forever changed the global perception. Lebanon was already facing numerous political and economic difficulties prior to the explosion. The nation had been attacked by political instability, economic downturns, and widespread corruption, which greatly affected and disappointed its people. Furthermore, the COVID-19 pandemic was already having a severe impact on Lebanon, making its already bad economic situation worse and placing a burden on its healthcare system. The explosion triggered a huge shockwave that wrecked Beirut, resulting in thousands of casualties and fatalities and heavily damaged buildings. The force of the blast was equivalent to 1.1 kilotons of TNT, leaving a crater and widespread damage. The blast's devastating effects were felt as far away as Cyprus, approximately 240 kilometers away. In order to reduce the suffering of those affected, the government declared a 2-week state of emergency, mobilizing emergency services and initiating rescue and relief efforts. Despite all of that, these efforts were tainted by corruption, inefficiency, and lack of coordination. The explosion encouraged rage among the Lebanese people, who called for responsibility and justice for the fatalities and extensive destruction they endured. Systemic problems, carelessness, and corruption within the Lebanese government and its institutions were found to be responsible for the explosion. A complete disregard for public safety was revealed when it was discovered that numerous warnings regarding the risks posed by the stored ammonium nitrate had been ignored or overlooked. The psychological trauma experienced by survivors and witnesses of the explosion also had a profound and lasting impact on mental health and their well-being.
Imagine a future where catastrophic incidents like the Beirut explosion. This vision could become a reality with the right solutions and actions. Firstly, stringent regulatory reforms need to be implemented. This means enforcing laws about hazardous product handling, conducting regular inspections, and punishing non-compliance. Secondly, infrastructure must be upgraded. Improved port storage facilities and fire suppression systems can significantly reduce accident risk. Thirdly, transparent oversight procedures and clear accountability lines are crucial. Those responsible for handling dangerous materials should be held accountable for any negligence or corruption. Fourthly, in-depth risk assessments and thorough emergency response plans are key. Educating staff, creating evacuation plans, and coordinating with relevant organizations can ensure a swift response to emergencies. Fifthly, the public should be educated about the dangers of hazardous products. Through awareness campaigns, communities can learn the importance of safety precautions and reporting safety issues. Sixthly, international cooperation can lead to the exchange of best practices and information about hazardous material management. Seventhly, investing in technology can boost risk identification and prevention. Data analytics, sensor technologies, and remote monitoring systems can serve as early warning systems. Lastly, Local communities should be engaged in safety programs and decision-making processes. Their participation can help identify weak points and offer unique solutions. With these long-term solutions and safeguards, countries can work to prevent such catastrophes, that ensuring the safety and well-being of their people and environment.